Welcome to the latest episode of Real Brits, Real Talk. Got a really special guest with us today. He's a guy that I've been following on TikTok for quite some time before we even thought about doing a podcast. His name's George. His TikTok account is Civilizations Forgotten, and I keep forgetting that last bit. And a lot of what he talks about really resonated with me, so I've been following him for a while. Reached out to him once we started the podcast. So, George, thanks for joining us on Bonfire Night. It stopped raining in my neck of the woods, so the conservatory's quiet. You might hear a few bangs. That's not me with a woman under the table. That is the fireworks. But yeah, what are you all about? What's your channel about? Why are you doing it?
So the TikTok's called Civilizations Forgotten. It's effectively I'm challenging some of the preconceived dates of some of the sites that we see across the world. Effectively, I'm touching on the theory that there's a forgotten advanced civilization within our time frame. I'm not claiming that it was aliens or lasers or giants or anything like this. I'm simply saying that they have a lost technology that we don't know what it is, and we're being told a lot of lies about our history. Not all of it, but some of it, like who we were in the past. I think we're being lied to.
So, like, for the average viewer that, is thinking, what's he going on about? We're kind of like talking about things like the pyramids, because we have no idea who really built that. We have theories, but if you really look into it, the pyramids, millions of stones, all 20 million tons, how did they really get moved? And that's what you look into, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's questioning a lot of the way that they say that ancient people built stuff. So, for example, they like to say that for the pyramids, for example, they like to say that they dragged the stones into place. But one big problem you've got with that is that if you create a ramp as big as the pyramids, it's going to leave a footprint that you're going to be able to see. Because with LiDAR scans, for example, in the Amazon, we see that they had ancient structures, precise structures, and they, in comparison, are tiny to what the size of this ramp would have been. It would have had to have been at least the size of the pyramid, obviously, because it would have had to have gone around it. And for one, there's no remnants of this, and then two, if we're still relating to the pyramids, you have 80-ton granite blocks, and you have multiple 80-ton granite blocks. They lifted to a height of 300 feet. And the thing with granite is it's really brittle as well. So not only is it heavy, not only is it extremely hard to cut, the notion that you use a copper chisel, which is so much softer. If we look on the Mohs scale, you have the Mohs scale, which says that copper is a 3. So the lower the number, the softer the material. And then you have granite, which is 7. But then they also have other things like diorite, which is like I think it's an 8 or 9, and then granodiorite, many other materials as well. And it's not just the fact that they were able to cut it, it's the fact that some of these things that you see, like there was an old statue of Ramses' head, and I believe it was carved in granite. I could be wrong, but I do believe it was carved in granite, and it's perfectly 3D symmetrical, as if it was made on a machine. And what I'm saying is that it's not feasible that you do it with a copper chisel. You can say that they had a lot of time, but the truth is that you can't just justify time without adding any other kind of context to what you're talking about. You say they had time, but if they don't have the right amount of tools, if they don't have the right material, the right methods, then they can't do anything. And then when you see some of these granite boxes that are cut, the precision is to thousandth of an inch, and it will be the whole way across the granite boxes as well. And you have to have the saw or whatever's cutting it, you have to have it in a fixed position, because the moment that you start to get movements, the smoothness is going to go. And you could say that you polish it down. What do you polish it down with? And there's so much that's missing. And we look in Peru as well. We see different periods of history in Machu Picchu. You see the smaller blocks that were built by the Inca, and then you see these massive megalithic blocks. And when we look at Peru and we look at Egypt, we see these mysterious polygonal granite stones with they have these weird protruding nubs that come out of them as well, and they're almost the exact same. And you see it on a wall at Easter Island as well. I'm trying to think of the name of the place on Easter Island, but yeah, there appears to be a massive forgotten link. People appear to have been able to have traveled the world, and yeah, we don't really know how. There's a link between the Aboriginals in Australia and I believe it's the Amazonians. There's a DNA link, and it wasn't known that they were able to, that they ever contacted each other. So, you know, that's just one of many reasons and many things that show that things were lost. That history and civilizations have been lost to time.
So just going back quickly, I've just pulled up here what the Mohs scale is. So Mohs scale of hardness is a scale used to measure the relative hardness of minerals and other materials. It was developed by Frederick Mohs, German mineralogist, in 1812. So you've got a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the softest and number 10 being the hardest. And what they say is anything above can scratch the thing below it. So a 2 can scratch 1, but a 1 can't scratch 2. So number 1 is talc, TALC. Then we go gypsum, calcite, fluorite, apatite, not appetite, but almost appetite, orthoclase feldspar at 6, quartz at 7, topaz at 8, corundum at 9, and diamond at 10. And then obviously I've then just gone into it. So granite is typically ranked on the Mohs scale of hardness at around 6 or 6.5. So looking at that, quartz would cut granite.
It would cut granite, and you find quartz in sand.
Correct.
But again, the problem is that, okay, you could cut one surface, but then you have boxes that have been hollowed out. You have boxes that have perfect tubular drill marks. You have 3D symmetry, and you know, he's done multiple 3D scans with engineers with decades of experience, and they're now finding that some of these granite vases, especially the ones in rose granite, they're so precise down to thousandths of an inch. Some of them are just perfectly flat on the bottom, and they all have a base scale of pi. They're built using, so for instance, different radians of pi, square roots of pi, and you find this in the pyramids as well. And then when we come back to the pyramids, we find certain numbers have been encoded into the pyramids. So, for example, if you take the base perimeter of the pyramids and times it by 43,200, you get the circumference of the Earth. And the 43,200 itself isn't a totally random number. It's a number that's to do with the precessional cycle, which is the movement of the stars in the sky. When it comes to the precession cycle, I'm not 100% sure on the best way to describe it, but I understand it, if you get what I'm saying.
But all these cities all across the world, they all seem to point at the same constellation stars, don't they? No matter where they're popping up all over the world, they all seem to be pointing at the same lot of stars.
Yeah, so for example, if you look at the Sphinx, you can see that the Sphinx was originally a lion. And when we look at the lion constellation of Leo, that was housing the sun around the time of the Ice Age.
Yeah.
And some people, they'll say that you know, they built the Sphinx because they worship cats, but around the time of the dynasties that they say were building these pyramids, the star constellation was Taurus, and you see that they have multiple bull statues in Egypt. So they weren't afraid to carve out of bulls, and the Christians done it as well with Pisces, with the fish.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
it's a Christian symbol, isn't it? You see it on cars.
Yeah. I believe that it's to do with Pisces as well. So we do see different cultures representing different star constellations. You see it on Pillar 43 at Göbekli Tepe as well. I can't remember exactly what animals they are, but after a lot of professional people, like what are they called?
Graham Hancock.
No, I think they're called like astroarchaeologists or something.
Right, yeah.
It's one of those. It's one of those ones, and they've done a lot of excavations and examinations at the site, and they point that's how they got Göbekli Tepe being to 12,800 years old. And they also use carbon dating because it looks like Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried.
Yeah.
So that's how they've managed to get the date. And then
so pillar 43 in Göbekli Tepe is referred to as the vulture stone, and it has a depiction of a vulture and a scorpion on it. Obviously it's all subject to scholarly dating, but they're talking about it being around 11 to 12,000 years old, which predates any megalithic site on the planet. And they're uncovering more and more and more, aren't they? And so Göbekli Tepe is in southeastern Turkey.
Yeah.
And it was discovered, I believe it was a shepherd or something.
Yeah.
So essentially it was buried. And they don't know why it was buried. This was, unbelievably well carved. It wasn't done by primitive man, but they buried it for whatever reason. The theory that I've seen an awful lot around the sort of Graham Hancock type celebrity is there was something that happened around about 11 to 12,000 years ago called the Younger Dryas impact. And this is when Earth passed through what's called the toroid asteroid belt. And as we passed through this, there was a huge impact. Now, these pillars all line up astrologically towards, I can't remember fully if it's the toroid asteroid belt or a certain constellation in the stars, but if you go back in time and look at the star constellations, they change through what you spoke about earlier called the precession of the Earth. And monoliths that they've built all over Turkey, nobody knew why. They all slightly change over time. And what they've modeled it on is these were all built to face a certain part of the night sky, and it changed over hundreds of years, and they slightly altered the angle that they were building them at to precisely match the precession of the Earth. So essentially the Earth is on an axis like this, and the Earth is spinning around it, but what it also does is it wobbles on its axis. And what that means is, at the moment, the North Star is where true north points to in the sky. So it's the axis points to. But over thousands of years, because you have this wobble, the North Star actually changed. So at the moment, it's Polaris. But back in Egyptian times, it wouldn't have quite been Polaris, and so on and so on. So when you go back to these 11 to 12,000 year old structures, they're actually all pointing at a different celestial body, including a different North Star. I can't remember the name of the North Star then. It wasn't Polaris. And that's intriguing, because that's kind of, it's not woo-woo-ness. It's sort of, we've figured this all out now, and now we can look at something that has been, archaeologically dated to being around 11 to 12,000 years old, and it all lines up mathematically with what we're finding in computer models, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, and when it comes to Göbekli Tepe as well, they've only uncovered like 5% of it.
Yeah,
and so I think if they uncovered it, it would be one of or the biggest megalithic site in the world. And the theory is that this is the first ever megalithic settlement ever. And where did they get the knowledge from? It's you don't just gain these skills. You don't just wake up and then go, I'm going to build the biggest megalithic site that's going to be that way for the next at least 12,000 years. You have to get the knowledge from somewhere. And then so the mainstream argument is that Göbekli Tepe is the first ever site, and it was built by hunter-gatherers, and then they actually changed what hunter-gatherer means, and instead of it being like a person who hunts and gathers, they also just build megalithic stuff. They just changed what megalithic means, hunter-gatherer means. And what's intriguing is when we look at Göbekli Tepe as well, you see these bags. I mean, they look like bags. You see it on Pillar 43 as well. But then you see it in Mexico. You see it in ancient Sumer. You even see it in New Zealand.
So what
I
are
didn't know.
we talk about these small handbags that are almost carved that the figures are holding.
Yeah.
And the first place that it's seen at is Göbekli Tepe, and of course the question is, what's the significance of these bags? How are all these civilizations linked? You know, if there was meant to be no contact between these civilizations, why are they all holding a similar bag? And when you see when you look at places like Mexico and again New Zealand, I never knew New Zealand had places holding these bags as well. It seems to be in almost every continent.
Do you think it's hidden from us, or do you think like I've heard like Graham Hancock say that he thinks humanity has just forgotten about this period, or do you think it's being delivered? Because Graham Hancock, for instance, if anyone don't know, he's got a Netflix series all about this, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But in the scientific community, he's pretty much has been for a very long time, hasn't he? About all these theories and what he has. Him and Russell Carlson. Is it Russell Carlson?
Randall Carlson.
Yeah,
Randall Carlson's he's more of the geology side.
Yeah, but his theories link quite well with Graham Hancock's, don't they? And together they're kind of trying to patch our history together. So do you think it was deliberately, or do you think we just forgot?
Bit of both. I think when people say where are the machines, that's a good question. They could be hidden. They could be hidden in the Vatican. I mean, they could have rusted away. I mean, it's been 12,000 years. If there was a great flood, then most of these machines.
Perhaps it was a different way, because they say through vibrations that they use vibrations to move things, and I don't know the technological way of it, but just perhaps it was a different way of technology. Perhaps they didn't need tools as such,
Maybe, but I think that when you see saw marks, you see certain saw marks in granite, you see tubular drill marks in granite as well. We see scoop marks, say at the Aswan Quarry. You see them at Stonehenge as well.
But isn't the rotation of the screw marks inside these, they're even better than what we can do now, aren't they?
They are at a faster RPM,
Yeah, than what we can even achieve now.
Yeah, in some of them, it almost looks like they've used a kind of a sonic sound, it's almost a vibration to push it through rather than cut it. And some of some they look cut, some they look like they were being scratched away by a large machine. Like when you look at some of the caves in India, it's just really weird how we see ancient tool marks and advanced tool marks, and they go, no, it was a hunter-gatherer with a diorite ball doing that on a bit of granite because we found a ball at the Aswan Quarry. And then you look, and this unfinished obelisk is 1,500 tons, and they're carving it from the bedrock. They intended to make it and lift it there, and then travel. I don't know how far it was, in all honesty, wherever they were going to go. It's quite funny actually that they say that it was. When I say primitive people, I'm not saying that they were like, people who just discovered fire. Nothing like that. I'm talking that the way that they described them is that they weren't terribly clever, but they somehow knew how to live
with nature, like the Indians for thousands of years.
And when I'm saying an advanced civilization, I'm not talking about like planes and helicopters. I'm just saying these guys knew how to cut stone better than we did. They knew how to live with nature so much better than we did. They had a knowledge of mathematics that we appear to have rediscovered rather than discovered. And it just looks like we're rediscovering stuff again. And whether it's through it being drip fed to us on purpose, so certain technologies that they make, maybe some of them, this is pure speculation, some of them could have been from the past, and then we're being drip fed ancient technology bit by bit. That's a theory I've never heard anyone say. That's just something that I think.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're just talking, aren't we? So
that's it.
What do you think, Nick?
I think it's within human nature to always jump to the most fantastical explanation for something that we can't explain yet. and you can understand why people jump to aliens and they jump to this. But going back to the Aswan Quarry, where they've got this huge, absolutely monstrous, what do you call them?
Obelisk.
But it looks like human beings have done it with something materialistic, scooping it. Whether they found a way to soften the stone, I don't know. But it was definitely done by human beings that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the reason that wasn't finished was because they found a crack or a fissure in it that meant that it was going to break, or it did break. Now, my question would be, if it was a civilization that were very advanced, they would have been able to detect that before they even started spending the millions of man hours that would have gone into getting it to that stage already. So I think a civilization that has been able to develop sonic weapons or sonic tools and able to cut things precisely, you would speculate that they would have the knowledge to have surveyed the area that they were going to do, maybe drilled boreholes, and I don't know, because I think that's kind of where we would be at now.
Yeah.
I just think we underestimate how thousands of people remember, these people didn't have iPhones, they didn't have dating websites, Xboxes, they had nothing to consume the 8 to 10 hours a day that they were alive or awake for, other than reproducing and food. Now, once they got to a stage where food was becoming more abundant, the human mind wanders and it wants to explore and it wants to do things. And, the power of thousands of people with a solitary goal, I think we underestimate how amazing human beings are and what we actually would be capable of. Yeah. However, I'm not convinced that, like you were saying, the narrative that's been given to us is entirely accurate. And what really bugs me is, if you call yourself a scientist, you are willing to drop your lifetime's work when somebody discovers something that goes against what your theory was. And you do it without any remorse, any regret, any jealousy. You go, yep, this is science, and everything that I've thought happened up to this point is wrong, and I'm now going to follow this new line of thought. Archaeologists are not open to this chain of thought. So they are not scientists. They've got a theory. Egyptologists have got a theory. So this, what's his name? Zawan, or whatever his name is. He's the most pompous, narcissistic man you will ever meet. He has a theory. He has an agenda, and he's not willing. Now, that's not a scientist.
Yeah, agree.
So I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here, because I do think we don't do human. I mean, I think we were saying this together, George, when we was on my live the other day. I've been to the pyramids of Giza. I've stood on them. I've been inside the king's chamber. Now, from a distance, they look truly magnificent, and they look as though it was just sort of carved out of a piece of rock, and the lines are perfect. Now, as you get closer and closer and closer to it, to the stage where you can stand and touch it, it looks a pile of rocks. So if you're ever getting your house, anything done in the house, and you need some hardcore dumping, and you phone up the local builders merchant, and they come with their truck and they dump some hardcore on your driveway, it makes something that resembles the Pyramid of Giza. Just through physics, just through the laws of nature. It isn't, because from a distance you can obviously see that this has been made, but it isn't as spectacular as you would assume that it is. Now, what's going on inside is a completely other story. You know, these huge granite blocks that have been lifted hundreds of feet high. Yes, but again, it's very easy to listen to somebody that's never been to the pyramids and them tell you that it is perfectly cut. The line down each side is perfectly straight. It isn't. Now, I understand that thousands of years of weathering, you know, that my house wouldn't look perfectly. So there's absolutely something amazing that's there that we are not 100% certain of where it is, or how it got there, who did it. But it is also very easy to get lost into this. It is perfection down to a millimeter. And it's it's a pile of rocks that's been organized in a fairly intricate way. Yeah. But 10,000 people, no other purpose in their life other than to get it right. Who knows? Now, I saw a theory that I was watching something the other day, and they were saying that essentially what the pyramids were different. They were producing chemicals inside them. There were chemical plants, and each one of the pyramids. So you've got the Step Pyramid, the pyramids in Saqqara, you've got the Great Pyramid of Giza, and the three pyramids in Giza. But there's not just three pyramids in Giza. There's actually, I don't know the exact number, but there's probably over 20. It's surrounded by very small pyramids that you don't really see unless you're in an aerial bird's eye view of it. But what they were saying was these chambers and how they're all done, they were all there to create a different chemical reaction so that they produced something. And, you know, you look at that and you go, yeah, I can see that. And they show you a modern version of how we produce calcium carbonate or whatever it was. I can't remember. And there were a lot of similarities there. Were they power plants? I don't know. Possibly.
Yeah, well, I think it's Chris Dunn who he wrote a book called The Giza Power Plant. Yeah. And yeah, he believes that it could have been a machine. But then
he was talking more about piezoelectricity, wasn't he? And the electricity being created by the pressure of because is there water, or was there water underneath it? I don't know if there still is, but there's some speculation as to saying that there was water under there, and this flow of the water created this piezoelectrical force that was then generated through, and that's why they use granite and limestone and whatnot. But again, that seems quite outlandish to me, whereas this theory that I was looking at the other day seemed grounded in common sense, scientific approach that we understand now. And you look at it and you go, yeah. And it gave a reason for why, you know, because Egyptologists would say to you that the Step Pyramid was the Step Pyramid because they were just experimenting on how to get it to the stage that they got it, you know, with Khufu's, you know, burial chamber, and they made a mistake on it, and that's why it was angled like this, and that's why this was angled like that, and that's why this one didn't have it. But this theory said, no. You look at how we do things today, and that looks like the Step Pyramid.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably why. Why was London built on the Thames?
Yeah, I mean, it could have been multi-purpose, because you know when you just said about growing crops, they made a fiberglass pyramid on a particular section of ground in Russia, and they found that the yield of the crops was something like 30% more. They found that the soil becoming rich. They found that the air around it got ionized. So, I mean, yeah, the pyramids could have partly been built to make crops, but you know, as you said about the piezoelectric effect, for me the question would be, if that's what they were built for, why were they built for that? Could the water have something to do with it? Because water is a very good conductor of electricity, and there is a theory as well that they had a type of electricity. Could it have been used to have produced, I'm not going to say electricity, but a type of energy that everyone used? So when they say a big power plant, could it have been a type of energy that either don't know or have no use for nowadays? And if the pyramids are, built in the Ice Age or before the Ice Age, 12,000, 30,000 years old, whatever, what could this civilization have been doing? And going back to the pyramids, when you said about they look like a random bunch of blocks, admittedly, as you pointed out, I've not actually been there myself, so I guess you could say it's a bit contradictory that I am talking about it. But you can see enough online. You can have a very good look at pictures. You can have a look at the mathematical equations that have gone into it. You can have a look at videos. You can watch multiple videos of people doing tours. And from pictures I've seen, I've thought the same thing as well. They do look like a random bunch of blocks, but it's that this randomness may have had a reason, because during I believe it's the winter and the summer solstice, if you look from the pyramids from a bird's eye view, you see it's actually got 8 sides.
Yeah.
And so they've actually been built on a very slight incline. Now, for whatever reason this is, I don't know, but they clearly had a bunch of random blocks put in. We see it as random, but I say clearly, I want to be careful when I say they clearly, but it appears that these random bunch of blocks may have actually been purposely built in this certain type of way.
If we're building a wall,
yeah,
we can make the internals as rough as we like and do it as quickly as we can with the least amount of work and effort. We put a pile of bricks that somehow connects a little bit, but then what we do is we put a facade on it, and we make it look amazing on the outside by covering it in whatever it might be, plasterboard, then plaster, then wallpaper. And I'm looking at my wall, but actually what's on the inside quite often, and that's to me what the pyramids resemble. So when people are talking about the pyramids, the blocks are so closely interlocked that you can't get a sheet of paper in. Nonsense, absolute nonsense, because the vast majority of the blocks that are there now, which granted are on the inside, you can put your hand inside them. You could put your fist inside them. They are not this tightly interlaced lock. Now, I believe that the limestone casing was, and there is evidence that the outer, and I understand that, but this precision was only built in certain parts of it.
Yeah.
And if we're talking a advanced civilization that is capable of traveling thousands of light years, and I know you don't believe in the alien theory, but we're just sort of thrashing ideas out here.
Yeah.
If you've got a civilization that can build a craft that can travel light years with beings inside it, you'd think they wouldn't need to put a pile of rubble on the inside of something and then make it look pretty on the outside. It would be, everything would be. There's an awful lot of human endeavor and human mistakes in that pyramid. And they're the kind of things that people don't often talk about. And I can talk about that because, like I say, I've stood there. You have to go up a good amount of feet to get into the opening, to go down into the, and some of the blocks are bigger than me, but an awful lot of them. So you often hear Joe Rogan going on about this. It's X amount of million blocks that are in there, and it would have taken one block to be laid I don't know the numbers, but every 5 seconds a block needed to be laid. Now, most of them blocks are not carved blocks. They are roughly cut and placed in. So maybe the outer perimeter of bricks were absolutely handcrafted by master masons. And then as it got closer in, it ended up being the bricky just chucking some bit of rock in here and rock in there. And they're the kind of things that make me go, yeah, this was humans doing this, because that's the kind of thing we do now. We use breeze blocks, and then on the outside, we use a real brick. Whereas 100 years ago, it was real brick. And that's why people now say, don't buy a brand new house because the walls are paper thin. Well, we've learned how to cheat and make things more cost efficient and more time consuming, or less time consuming. And that's what the pyramids are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do get what you mean. When you say about the stones not being precisely aligned, a lot of the structures you see in Egypt have been hit by earthquakes. And if the pyramids are as old as people say, then over time the earthquakes would shake the foundations of the pyramid. And where you wouldn't have the people there to fix it, then of course this could be one reason. And another reason why some of the blocks might look, as you say, roughly cut. It could be people chipping away for souvenirs. It could have been people taking bits for building materials. It could have been, I mean, this is all just theory. I mean, you could be exactly right, but I'm just
stripped, isn't it?
Yeah,
there's over the years.
Yeah, there's so many possible, and don't forget weathering from sandstorms hitting it.
100%.
Because
100%.
there is human error in the pyramids. They are at their something like, is it 1/20th or 3/60th, 1/20th of a degree out from true north. The Sphinx is an interesting one as well. It's true what you're saying. So there's something called the water erosion theory that I believe Robert Schoch
was it somebody Schoch?
Robert Schoch.
Yeah.
Yeah, he either come up with the theory or he's the one who's been promoting it the most. And effectively, so around the perimeter of the Sphinx, there's these erosion marks, and they can only be caused by precipitation runoff. So you know when it rains and you see the water streams come down, that's what it's caused by. And the last time that they had heavy floods like that in that part of Egypt was around the time of the Younger Dryas period, around the time when
11 to 12,000 years ago.
Yeah, because the Sahara changed from a lush green desert to lush green land to the desert that it is now. And I mean, when you think about it, again, this is just speculation, but it would make so much more sense that they built the pyramids in a place that was lush, green, tropical. You was able to grow crops, etc., and whatnot, rather than building the pyramids in a hot environment with sandstorms and everything else. I mean, I'm not saying they couldn't have done it, but it would just, if they're using it for crops, as you said, as one of the things, wouldn't it make much more sense that they built it when the land was actually fertile and not covered in sand? That's just one thing I put forward.
So when was this done then, guys? So what period of time are we saying? Well, obviously, we're not cavemen at this point. All these great cities that are being built around the world, what actual period of time do we believe it? Was it you were building castles? Were the Egyptians building pyramids? You know, because it just doesn't seem to make any sense. If you think about, you know, you go back to King Arthur, we're building great castles, but they're nothing compared to these Amazon cities and all that. When were we building these things?
I'm not sure the Egyptians built them.
That's what I mean. When did humanity or the Egyptians or whoever it was, when do we reckon this actually was?
Thing is, if it was the Egyptians, it wasn't the dynastic, or it may have not even been the pre-dynastic. It may have been before them. There's something called the Turin Kings list, and it effectively lists certain gods walking the planets before. I mean, don't get me wrong, these the numbers on the Turin Kings list are crazy. Like some of them, you know, one ruled for like 108,000 years. No, I'm thinking of ancient Sumer there. Got my dates mixed up there. Yeah, but on the Turin Kings list, they have that these gods live for a ridiculous amount of time, which you can take that as you want. You can say that they made it up. You can say that this was their explanation for what happened. It could be encoded, because again, there could be something encoded in there, because again, you've got certain numbers that you find repeated again and again. I believe, is it something like 108 or something is found there? You do find these certain, what's the name of them? Not holy numbers, but I can't think of the word, but there are certain type of numbers like 72, 108, and they're special numbers. I can't remember why. You find them in the Bible. You find them on you find them in ancient Sumer. You find them built into the pyramids. It's these certain numbers may have also had something to do with the sound frequencies that we were talking about. Randall Carlson was saying something on the Joe Rogan show. The numbers that they find repeated in the Bible again and again and again relate to certain frequencies, to certain things or something. And then you have to question, well, you know, what was the representation of some of the old historical books that we find? You know,
we've all heard the stories of Atlantis, and we all think they're all made up, but there really is a city under the ocean that, for some reason, no one is allowed to really go and have a good nosy around and discover. So, yeah, it's just, to me, it just feels like there is a huge part of humanity we don't understand. For whatever reason, we're not allowed to dig into. And when people do, they get berated.
Yeah, and talking about underwater structures as well, as you were saying, there's something in Japan called the Yonaguni Monument. Some say it's natural. It's not, but some say it's natural. It doesn't look it when you look at it. More underwater structures. Do you remember there was that the earthquake in Thailand? Was it in 2004?
Yeah.
So when there's a as you know, when there's a tsunami, that the tide.
Is that when the tsunami was?
Yeah. So when the tide all went up, because the tide goes out and then rushes back in, and they found these massive structures that were exposed for about half hour, then the tsunami coming. There are more, but I can't. I've got the name of it actually on my phone. If you give me 2 secs.
So I was watching something the other day, and this is one of those things that bunks any flat earther. So one of the things that the flat earthers come at you with is they say water always finds a level.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. So Google have mapped the ocean floor. So when you go onto Google Maps, you can actually see the ocean floor and structures there. And the way that they do that is they send down, it's almost like a sonar or something like that, and it measures the bulges and dips in the sea that are representative of what's going on underneath. So the water isn't just flat. They're finding these tiny indentations, which then makes them understand that there's a slight dip there. And using this technology, they're able to map the seabed. So when a flat earther says water always finds it level, no, it doesn't, because Google are using the fact that it doesn't to be able to construct what's going off underneath the ocean. So when we're talking about the Mariana Trench and all of these things that nobody's been to the bottom of, a lot of it is done using technology that relies upon the fact that water doesn't find a level and there are dips and troughs. But it's not 100% accurate. I mean, they could never use the technology to get what they can do on land with the street maps and things like that. But there's a good one for you. If somebody comes at you telling you the Earth's flat and water finds its level, it doesn't. And that's why you can go on Google Earth now and you can see the structures off the coast of California or the UK.
George, he can't wait to get a flat earther on here, mate. He is itching to get a flat earther on here and have it out with him, mate. I'm telling you, it's going to be a messy podcast, that one.
But the thing is, all those kind of people do is just say, no, you're not telling the truth there. That's not true.
Yeah, they never actually put any proper points.
No, they never.
To me, they never properly explain what they're actually talking about. I don't think that when it comes to flat Earth, I think a lot of them believe this theory because they disbelieve every mainstream narrative.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then the moment you start to get into that, you believe that aliens are real, you believe giants are real, you believe that, you know, and then I think that's what happens. That's why for me, even though everyone likes to say
aliens are real, George, you know that, don't you?
Aliens are real. I believe there's life. I believe there's life, but on a cellular level, I don't know if there's. I mean, there could be. I mean, if the parallel universe theory is correct, then there's billions of an infinite amount of planets with other people on other things.
I'm not worried about aliens for the simple fact is like if you was an alien species and you travelled all this way and you looked at our planet and at the moment all you saw was us all pointing nukes at each other. You'd be like, just let them get on with it. You know what I mean? Why are we going to get involved in that? You know, the world is gone batshit crazy at the moment. So,
but what if allowing us to do that has ramifications that goes throughout the universe? So 50 years ago, when somebody invents the plastic bottle, nobody's thinking by you chucking that into the water, that's going to have a knock-on effect with microplastic. You just don't know. So if they are so intelligent and super intelligent, and we've just discovered nukes, and they understand the repercussions that would have throughout the universe, I think they would be fucking interested in us. You know, there's an awful lot of sightings of UAPs, which is what they're now calling them, around nuclear test sites.
Yeah.
And an awful lot of these came in the 1940s once we discovered how to split the atom. Yeah. So it would make sense that if we've got the power to destroy a solar system, let's say, that's going to have a knock-on effect. And yeah, I think they probably would be. I don't know.
Have you heard about what the Americans have just asked in Congress? If they can have the money to build a nuclear bomb that is 20 times more powerful than what they dropped on Hiroshima.
Flip it hell.
Why would you want that? You know what I mean?
I think it's to get funded.
Me, man. Baffles me.
I think a lot of the time they do it, it's to get extra funding. I think that they'll be given a hell of a lot more money than. I mean, I think they'll build the bomb. They're batshit crazy. But yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that extra money will be going towards whatever. I think that's what a lot of it is. It's extra funding. It's
a dick swinging competition. The way that's what I see it. You know, the Russians are like, we've got Poseidon. Look at the size, and the Americans are like, right, we need something better. We need a bigger, better one. You know what I mean? Let's give it Zeus. We call it Zeus, God of the gods. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's just a dick swinging competition. That's all I see it as. You know.
Yeah, the Russians, the most powerful nuclear explosion was from the Russians in 1961, wasn't it? It was the Tsar bomber. The guys who dropped it were given a 50% chance of living. It's crazy.
Russia have more nuclear weapons than the whole of NATO put together.
Yeah, it's
ridiculous, you know.
Thing is, if one nuke goes off, that's it.
Yeah.
That's game over.
Yeah. And yeah, the way things are going on around the world, it's a scary place. Like the whole of TikTok has just changed now to support him. Like I do a post or I go on live, like I was saying earlier, and guaranteed within the first 10 minutes of me being on live, it's, do you support Palestine? Do you support, you know, I support humanity, and a lot of us do. And we're being forced to pick sides at the moment. And, well, I don't know if you've heard, but Remembrance Day, there's meant to be a massive march going on. And the UK...
Pro-Palestine or pro-Israel?
Yeah, pro-Palestine. But they want to march right up to where we lay all our poppies. Now, like I say...
I've got no problem with people protesting and... having the ability to call out human death, but I don't like them hijacking and piggybacking on things that are already there, set in tradition. Because that, to me, seems as though it is a disregard to what you're doing, your traditions, your cultures, and we're now going to... Why can't they do it the day before?
Yeah.
Or later on in the evening that day? Why does it have to coincide with something that is our tradition? Why do we have to stop calling Christmas Christmas and call it holidays? You know, let us do what we do, and we've got no problem you expressing your political view if it's in a peaceful way, and if you're against people dying, which I'm sure most people are, I'm all for it. But I don't like this incessant way that they're trying to eradicate anything that's already happening. Like, we're going to pull all the statues down now of anybody that's ever thought of anything in the past that might have been slightly against one. No, this happened. We need to learn from it, educate people. We don't go smashing stuff up and hijacking Remembrance Sunday and pulling Christmas trees down. We gather and have our own time and this and that and the other. But for me, it's starting to become a little bit... I don't want to use the word invasion because it's not the right word, but it's almost like things are being...
It's hypocritical. What's the word? Hypocritical.
Yes.
Yeah. Because...
You know what? I think a lot of people... Oh, sorry.
Go on, George.
I think a lot of people are trying to identify with the cause now. Because you know how a lot of it nowadays is you've got to focus on how you identify. If you're a they, them, he, she, transgender. And I think a lot of people also identify now with political causes because everything is political. But one thing I don't understand, they're marching in London or wherever. I don't care if they're pro-Israel, pro-Palestine. What are they trying to achieve? They're not going to stop the war. Right? They're not going to stop the war. And if they're trying to raise awareness, then I think 90% of the population already knows what's going on. I don't understand what they're trying to do. I mean, 2 million people marching. I keep repeating myself. I just don't understand what they're trying to do.
Not put a thing up on TikTok saying
Correct.
Palestine or Israel, and then having hundreds of viewers arguing the toss and causing more divide, while all the time they're racking up your likes, following your page, giving you gifts and making you money. And then what do? You get that money. Do you send that to Palestine? Do you send that to Israel? No, you don't. You put that in your back pocket. You set up that page the next day and you go again. And this is, it's just, this is what's winding me up.
But obviously, you know, I've only been on TikTok now for just over a year, and I very, very quickly worked out how this platform works, and I believe it's how all media works. If you can cause controversy, an argument, a fight, a point of view that doesn't agree with the vast majority, you are very quickly going to get views, advertising, money opportunities, and that's what the media do, and they've been doing it for years. So if the news, let's not say, so the Sun newspaper, its number one priority is to sell newspapers. It isn't to report on what's right or just in the world. It's to sell newspapers. And they understand that causing outrage, sitting on one side of a fence rather than the other, and quite often sitting on the side of the fence that most people are against, is going to get you more airtime. It's going to get you more interviews. It's going to get you more advertising. And ultimately, it's going to make you more money. And that's how TikTok works. It's how Facebook works. It's how Instagram works. And it's how a lot of these people work. You know, 1 minute they're all supporting Ukraine. Who's mentioned Ukraine in the last 3 months?
4 months, yeah. No one.
What's happened? Has that stopped?
Yeah.
Is it still going? Was it as serious as it was made out to be in the beginning? There's now more questions than there are answers, because we're now all focused on Israel and Palestine. And then what's going to be next month?
They always give us something to focus on. I mean, around the time of lockdown, it was BLM, and then obviously a lot of people were giving money to BLM. And I mean, you know, as you said, if you want to do good, give to charity, and this is what people done. They gave to the BLM charities, but I mean, didn't a load of that money get used for personal stuff?
They're all getting arrested and banged up now.
All charities, only a very tiny portion of the money goes to the actual charity. I was watching something the other day, and it was like, you donate to, and it was, I can't remember the charity they were talking about, but it was a very well-known one. You know, it might have been like,
Oxfam.
It was a big one. I can't remember what it was, and it was like, if you donate £1 to them, 8 pence of that goes to the actual cause.
Yeah, because the CEO's got about 400 grand wages.
There you go. So the CEO gets it, and you've got tax. Well, I don't know if you pay tax on charity, but there are going to be liabilities, and there are going to be assets that you're having to pay for. You know, your buildings that you're running it from, your printing costs, all of these things, and it's only coming from people giving. So you give £10, you think that's going to the children in Africa, or that's going to help in the Ukraine, and it isn't. The vast majority of it isn't. And it, again, Andy will. You know, we've had many conversations on this. The conspiracy on planet Earth is money. That's the conspiracy. People want money and controlling assets. So wherever there's a conspiracy, just look for where the money is. So when the Ukraine war was all a thing, there was millions and billions of pounds being made by certain news outlets and other people and social media. And now all of a sudden, so if you imagine you've got a load of honeybees, and they all go and find a field with a load of brand new flowers in and loads of new nectar, the whole swarm goes to that field. And once they've taken it all, it then moves to the next one and the next one and the next one. And that is all social media, and the media is. It is a swarm of bees going from one narrative that they're going to bleed dry for the money, and then they're going to move to the next one. And they're going to tell you what the most important thing to think about, the most important thing to be scared about is in that moment in time. Can you remember Ebola?
Yeah.
Where's that gone?
Yeah, that just disappeared quickly.
That's the same with the latest one, though, isn't it? The Ukraine war started.
It's all gone.
When Ukraine war started, COVID ended, didn't it? That day, like war. All right, that's the end of COVID. Forget about COVID, guys. We've got a war to concentrate on now. And then, like you just said, Nick, now it's what has the Ukraine war even finished? Well, yeah, it has kind of been wrapped up, but we've got to concentrate on Israel now. So let's go over here.
I mean, I read something. I read something today that Zelensky's now come out and he said, look, all the world's focusing on Israel and Palestine now, and we're not getting the money sent over to us, and we're not doing this, that, and the other. He's panicking now.
Yeah.
Well,
I find it weird that the moment they go on a stalemate, all of a sudden Israel starts to pipe up. Yeah. Well, the moment there's a stalemate and there's nothing more interesting to say in Ukraine, all of a sudden now the war has started. Well, I say started again. The stalemate, or whatever you want to call it, has ended, and now all of a sudden they're bombing each other again.
Well, I watched a general, an ex-American general, Rutter. Is it Rutter? Something like that. And he's American, but he will give it to you. He'll give it to you straight, like exactly if it's anti-American or whatever. And he was basically talking about like Russia have basically achieved what they wanted to achieve, and Ukraine just haven't got the manpower no more. Russia have basically done what they wanted to do, and this would have been over a year ago if it weren't for old Boris going over there and putting a wrench in the engine, so to speak. They were going to end it all a year ago, and then Boris went over there and said to Zelensky, no, don't worry, we're with you, don't worry, we're back here. Or, and then
it's like when you used to be at school and you wanted the little kid to go and have a fight with someone, and you're like, go on, we'll back you up, mate, go on. And you're only doing that for your own humour, your own gain, and you and all the year 9s are all taking the piss while this little year 7's rolling around on the floor, scrapping and crying. Then the teachers come over and everyone splits. Nothing to do with me, miss, nothing to do with me, it was them two. And that's what this is. Exactly. But instead of it being, what are we getting out of? Well, we're having a bit of a laugh and we're having a bit of, it's money. It's money. Yeah. You go and have a fight over there, and we'll supply you with billions of pounds worth of tanks and bombs that I've got shares in, and my family are going to make money from. So you keep fighting, we'll keep supplying you, and the money train, the gravy train is going to keep going. And hang on a second, what, they're going to stop now? Well, let's have another one. Let's fund that one.
I'll tell you what brought a stop to it as well. When they started seeing the Mexican cartels walking around with American Stinger missiles, they were like, hang on a minute.
And the Taliban.
Yeah.
And in the Middle East, driving around in the Humvees and things like that. And Biden's gone, it was less impactful to leave them there than it would have been to bring them back because of the cost of bringing them back.
It costs less.
Hang on. Yeah. Come on.
It costs less to leave it there than it did to bring it back.
Yeah. That's knowing what that nation will do with that. Just cause more chaos,
But in terms of monetary value and collateral damage, it would have cost billions to bring it all back. A couple of bombings and suicide bombers, few million, couple of thousand. It's only a few people. They're not interested in the bigger picture of humanity. It's all, how much money are we going to get out of it? It's not cost efficient to bring it, so we'll just leave it all over there. It's fine.
Yeah. Yes. Did you see that the currency of Afghanistan was like one of the fastest growing this year as well?
Was it?
It grew by like 10%.
If you were to let the Arab countries just get on with it and stop the West, they would be a fabulous place. I could, look at what Saudi Arabia are doing now. Like the cities they're building, and did you see Dubai over Halloween?
No.
The skeleton they had walking around Dubai.
No. I did. It was drones, wasn't it?
Skyscraper.
It was drones.
Drones. Massive.
I did see it, yeah.
Yeah, crawling up.
Yes, I did see it.
Yeah. Great big skyscrapers and that.
Yeah.
We're meant to be we're meant to be the West, but we are lacking so far behind.
The West is finished.
I can feel the kettle boiling across England, across Britain. Sorry, I shouldn't just say England, but I can feel, a kettle boiling. And I even saw a TikTok, someone saying, is this a holy war now? Is this the world turned into a holy war because everyone seems to be trying to divide us by religion or borders? Humanity's got to find a better way. I know that.
But again, that's something that's always happened. You only need to go back 2,000 years, 1,000 years, and that's what we were doing. We were going and killing people, taking over their land, taking their women, taking their crops, until someone bigger and stronger came over. But this was really, really interesting. I watched a documentary. It was about 2 years ago now, and it was this female professor, and she'd studied civilizations, not ancient civilizations necessarily, but the Roman Empire, the Greeks, all of these things. And one thing that she'd noticed studying their art and statues and things like that, their literature, was before any of these massive empires fell, the men became very feminized. Statues started turning into, instead of being big brutish men with a beard and a huge phallus, they then started to become like the Greek, where you see the man with the small penis and the shaped body. And that was representative of all of these huge societies when they become very political, very ambiguous in their sexuality. What then happens is you get a load of fucking Vikings come over that just rip the place to pieces, beat the chest, and start that again. And really interesting, and she was saying that's what's happening to the West right now. Because I tell you what, the East are not arguing over LGBT, this, that, and the other. They're not arguing over what you are and what, the other person. You've got to be careful what we say on here because we don't want to get censored. Whilst we're all arguing about this, we're bringing up little pussies that wouldn't know how to fight, wouldn't dare fight. So it's going to be us three on the front line if shit hits the fan. We're fucking older guys. We can't be doing this. And it will be taken over by a society that they have masculine men and feminine women. And that's what. And it was so interesting listening to this woman, because she was coming at it from somebody that had studied this stuff her whole life. And she said, it's just a cycle. It happened to the Egyptians. It happened to the Greeks. It happened to the Romans. It's just the same. And she said, it's happening right now.
Do you know what I've realised as well? When it comes to England, for example, no one seems to be, well, I say no one. A lot of people don't seem to be happy that they're British anymore. They moan, they're like, oh, I'm from Britain. The weather's crap. The prices are expensive. And the patriotism of this country, the proudness, so to speak, is completely gone. Whereas if you look at other countries such as Romania, they're proud. I used to work with a lot of Romanians. They were proud to be Romanian.
Yeah.
They kept their literally everything. They kept the way. So they kept their language. Even the food they ate was completely different. Like they didn't have a lot of processed stuff. Like they'd have a lot of bread and pickles, and like types of meat as well. They'd have.
I've got a bit of a thing that I come across this quite a lot in my lives.
Yeah.
And I put it like this to people. You've got to remember that the British, Scottish, Welsh, we fought off the Romans, the Vikings, and then along came the French. And when the French came, we started to learn, how to fight back. We learned off the Romans, the wall, the shield wall, things like that. We learned over, let's say, 800 years of being pillaged by Romans and Vikings. We learned. Then we united and we fought the French. Then we fought the French and the Spanish. And then, maybe after 800, nearly 1,000 years of warring, our heads got a bit big and we were like, we're not going to have our asses kicked anymore. We're going to do the kicking. And we went on and formed the British Empire. Okay? Now, I'm not ashamed of that. If anything, it makes me proud that we didn't, after the Romans and the Vikings, we didn't sit there for 1,000 years whimpering and crying about it. We actually did something about it. Now, did everything we do was a model to history? No, but no country can say that. No country on this earth can say they've been perfect in their history. So, I say be proud to be British. We've come a long way to keep this country, and it's the best country in the world. How many times? Well, it's a bit of a dodgy subject at the moment because we've had a lot of bad storms. But how many hurricane warnings have you had this year? How many earthquake? How many typhoon warnings? We don't get that. Yeah, we have some miserable weather, but that miserable weather also gives us the most richest farmlands in the world.
Yeah,
that we could sustain our island, no problem. So.
But we haven't been invaded since 1066. It's been nearly 1,000 years since we were last invaded. So we've clearly got a type of bloodline that's able to stand for itself. Because let's not forget. I mean, Jesus Christ. Sorry about that. The thing that was holding it decided to fall.
You've not even got a phone that can stand for itself.
No, but I'd say be proud to be British, Yeah, we have, and like I say, we ended slavery. So that's a big win-win for us, I think,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes me sick, people that come on TikTok and they have the agenda to put us down. I love them people. They're the people I go for on TikTok because, you're sat in this country.
It's a lack of education. It's a lack of debating skills. It's a lack of opening up your mind to somebody else's point of view. And it's all, look, I love TikTok. I think it's a fantastic social media platform, but it shouldn't be the only source of information that you're using, because you could get some 15-year-old that doesn't know anything about anything, geopolitics or whatever it might be, coming on here spouting their opinion that could be completely wrong, but they've got 15 million followers. Now, all of a sudden, they've influenced 15 million people, and it just breeds. And you have to be critical in your thinking and go, okay, that sounds plausible. I'm just going to go and do a quick Google search. And then somebody's going to say, wow, but Google's controlled. But yeah, some of it is, but it's largely correct. You can delve a little bit deeper, but and people don't have that ability anymore. They just don't do it.
Oh, no. This is the best era in human history where information is at your fingertips, literally for the first time, So that, like you say, it's a case of being very lazy, not opening up your eyes, and you don't have to. Some things you might read and think, well, that don't really make much sense, and it may have like 2% truth in it, but that's down to you to find another bit with another 2% truth in it and just start building your own narrative and open your eyes. And some things, just like I say, if you look at the world map and you see a big circle of Muslim countries, and then all of a sudden right in the middle is something else, ask yourself why. Just ask yourself who benefits from that,
But, however, what I would say on that is Jesus was born in Palestine, essentially, in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So go back 2,000 years, and that was a very, very holy place for Jewish people. Jesus was a Jew. Again, Israel has always existed to an extent. It wasn't Israel, but it was a very, very Jewish place because of... Now, go and ask the average person where Jerusalem is on a map, and they would not be able to tell you.
No.
Go and have a look at it, and it's right smack bang in the middle of Palestine.
But I bet they're marching up London tomorrow.
Yes, but they are all the ones that are marching up London tomorrow. And you only need to speak to somebody that is slightly intelligent and go, okay, maybe they shouldn't have put this there. And I don't agree that the amount of space that they've been left to live in it's not humane.
No.
But Jesus was born in Palestine, essentially, Jerusalem. So they have got some historical precedents to be there. So it wasn't as though in 1948 or whatever it was, they got a pin and just went bang. Well, wherever this lands, we're just going to transport you all there. It was kind of
you know what I mean? Yeah, I know what you're saying. But
equally, the expansion and how those Palestinians have been treated is wrong. But also the Israeli children and mothers and innocents that have died is wrong.
Yeah, that's
nobody should be dying. It's 2023. We've got enough food to feed everybody. We've got enough land to house everybody. We've got enough resources for everybody to have a decent house and a little car and this and that and the other. And it's the accumulation of wealth and things by a small amount of people that don't give a fuck about anybody else. And then these little things start to break out. That's the real conspiracy, and that's the real problem.
See, I don't understand why people are fighting over religion. Like, isn't the whole point of when you join a religion is to kind of join a group and it's peaceful and tranquil? Isn't that kind of the whole point, to dedicate your life to a certain way of how can I put it? No sin, following a type of a holy kind of way. And I'm sure there's nothing holy about grabbing guns and shooting everyone and bombing innocent little children and,
No.
you know, leaving people without families, bombing people's houses, leaving them with no possessions, nothing. It makes you wonder who's actually pulling all the strings.
But is a lot of that done in the name of religion now? I don't know. You know, I think a lot of
that's
it
more
now
of a shadow.
is political. It's territorial. It's gaining resources and things like that. But what I would say is, human beings are not designed to get on with other tribes.
Yeah,
it's
that's
built
it's
into our
tribal instinct
DNA
that humans have.
from day one. So why can I sit and have a conversation with the guy and find out he's a Derby County fan and I'm a Nottingham Forest fan and immediately have a different opinion about the guy? Because I support a different 11 men kicking a football around. There is something deep in our genome that is fearful of other tribes of people.
Yeah.
Through whether that's having different biological infections that we're not immune to, that's going to wipe us out. Smallpox is a fine example of that. And Christopher Columbus went over to the Americas and wiped out half of them through just having different bacteria and viruses that they didn't even know they had. So there has to be some mechanism, but unfortunately, the powers that be have figured out how to hijack that.
Yeah.
That's really what happens. It's not you against me and me against you. It's them understanding that is something that they can play off.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Correct. Race, sexuality, where you work, which football team you support, which imaginary set of lines you live in, and all of a sudden they're using that innate, whatever it is in your DNA that's been there from day one, against one another. And we are now intelligent enough to understand. But you can't have that conversation. You can't say that. You have to say, no, racism doesn't exist. Everybody loves everybody. You can't have the conversation and say, well, where does it come from? Why do people dislike and feel threatened by other people that might not look like them or speak like them or act like them? If you can have that debate and you break it down and you speak to a biologist that studied their whole life about it, and they say, yes, it's this strand of DNA on this gene that creates this feeling of this and that and the other. But we've now developed medicines to get over that. So when you have that feeling, you go, I know what this is now. This is something from when we were cavemen. And I'm intelligent enough now to get over that and see you for what you are, that you're not a threat to me biologically. You're not going to take my house from me or my wife or my kids. Now we're over that, we can have a conversation, two human beings. And I don't think anybody talks about things like that. I don't see it.
No, I think a lot of people are being dumbed down on purpose as well to stop them thinking. Because I mean, when you look at TikTok, for example, people's attention spans have been dramatically shorter now because they're constantly scrolling. It's quite, for some people, it's anxiety inducing as well.
Yeah.
And you know, when you see a lot of stuff online, you see on TikTok especially, you see like people you're supposed to be compared to. You see what you're supposed to be like, and then you have a lot of these influencers now. If you're not constantly working, then you're this and you're that. And a lot of people, I feel like this is another reason how this, shall we say, the modern ideology of a million different genders has come along as well. Because now no one knows who they, well, I say no one knows, but a lot of the people now, they don't know who they truly are.
You're right.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people are doing now is because they don't know who they are and all they see is their phone or on telly, they start identifying with that. And so in a way, they've tapped into your mind, and they've done it on purpose. They've tapped into your mind by reducing your attention span, giving you crap food, all of the microplastics, antibiotics in your food, coming back to it. There was a big scandal, weren't there, with Aldi and Asda and Lidl. They were putting crazy amounts of antibiotics in the chicken to stop a superbug or something. And then people are eating this, and now people's minds are completely fogged. The cognitive ability of some people has completely gone away. I remember I was working somewhere, and this girl was really upset, and then someone said to her, "What did you have for breakfast?" And she said that she had donuts for breakfast. And I couldn't help but think to myself, like, you know, your mind's not going to be in the right place if you're eating donuts for breakfast. Like, I'm a big guy myself. I've lost a bit of weight, so I've looked into how much like
Sugar.
foods are completely fucking us up, you know. And it's very, very, very scary. Like, I worked in a food exporter as well. I've done the quality control for produce that come into a certain supermarket. I won't say who. And the amount of chemicals that were on the food, I promise you, this is an actual thing. You could get, say, like a blueberry or a strawberry. You could squeeze the juice from that blueberry or strawberry onto the plant that's growing, and it has enough fertilizer and herbicides and pesticides that it would regrow. It was disgusting.
Oh my God.
I was there for about a year, and I was eating the fruit every day now. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was
Crack on.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it was
yeah.
I mean, it was all right eating a load of good fruit, but yeah, it does make you think, doesn't it?
All right, Nick's gonna go pick up his daughter now, but carry on for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And if you're up for coming to our new studio as soon as it's done, we'd love to have you there.
100%, mate.
Thank you for doing this, bro.
That's all right. It's been an honour, actually. It's been something I've been wanting to do for a while. So I thank you as well. I really do.
Definitely get you back on and do this again. Sorry Nick had to fly off like that, but he has got to go get his daughter.
That's all right.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch, mate. I've got your number. And as soon as that studio's up and running, we'll get you straight in.
I look forward to it. I look forward to seeing it as well and meeting everyone face to face finally.
Yeah, that's it. Do you have any other social media? Do you have a YouTube or anything like that?
Yeah, so the YouTube is called Civilizations Forgotten. Go and follow it. I'm mainly uploading shorts at the moment rather than videos because, we've had some stuff going on in the house, building work and whatnot. So it's been quite hard, but a lot of that's getting done now. So I'll be back on making YouTube videos. I'm planning to go to Egypt next year as well.
Oh, brilliant.
That's a big thing because, you know, how long can I keep talking about ancient sites? And the only ones I've been to are ones in Cornwall and Stonehenge, you know. So it's
do that, and then we'll get you back on in the studio.
100%. 100%.
Well, you take care, buddy, and I'll see you real soon. Yeah.
See you soon.